Hi everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to you to our Find Your Future Fortnight Law Employer panel. It's a rainy morning here today when this is being recorded, so we thank you all for taking the time to join us. My name's Rona, I'm from the Careers Service, and just before our panelists introduced themselves to begin the session, I just want to run through a few basic housekeeping points with you. So just to let you know, this session is being recorded. And it will be later be available on the Career Service YouTube channel for you to watch at a later date, just to recap at your leisure. So we understand some of you might want to keep your screens off. That's absolutely fine. We would love it if you can and are able to put your screens on. It does make it a nice experience if we can chat to faces and feel like we've got some people in the room. So please do if you can. You will remain on mute throughout the session, but there will be an opportunity later on just for you to ask any questions later. So if we can just ask you to respect when other people are asking questions, just to make sure that there's no background noise or you're interrupting those questions. Thank you. Once you've spoken, we just ask that you, if you've raised your hand as well, if you can just lower your hand using the Zoom function. All right, so just for a brief running order, today we're going to hear from 4 employers. We have today Tom Clark's joining us from Hay and Kilner, and they are kind sponsors for today's event as well. We've got Isabel and Sally Ann from Flex Legal. We have Tara from DRS, that's Document Solutions, and Daniel from Sintons. Okay. So just a brief overview of what we chatted about there. As I say, the session's recorded. We encourage you, please, to ask any questions, save them up or pop them in the chat box. As I say, put your hands up. This is a really good opportunity for you to quiz our employers, make some networking opportunities and hear all about the company and what they've got to offer. So please do make the most of that opportunity. Later on, as I say, we are going to have about 5 minutes from each panelist and a Q&A, and hopefully later on we'll have a little bit of a chance for you, if you wish, to have a one-on-one chat in breakout rooms. Okay, so running through the order, we're going to get started. I'm going to unshare my screen now and hand over to Tom from Hay and Kilner. So if you can unmute yourself, our first panelist of today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom Clark. I'm a solicitor in the employment team at Hay and Kilner, and I'm just recently 3 years qualified at the firm. So a bit of background to the firm. We've been going 75 years in Newcastle, full service law firm, meaning we cover everything from all commercial services, corporate work, commercial property, commercial disputes, down to all personal services as well, residential conveying, wills and probate and that sort of thing. So it does cover all bases. Like to think of ourselves as sort of one-stop shop for clients and all possible legal needs. We are very much a sort of regional firm. We do have national and some international clients, but I'd say the focus is on providing services to those in the Northeast, and trying to be as good at that as possible, rather than stretching ourselves too thin and trying to be something that we're not. So we do like to have quite a strong focus on Northeast and serving Northeast clients. In terms of our graduate opportunities, it's a fairly traditional law firm route. We offer a training contract that offers 2 years in advance, with a vacation scheme running every summer for people to apply, show off what you can do during a week, and also get a really good insight into whether the firm is right for you. And then often we hire on the back of that vacation scheme, so there is quite a focus on using that as a way of finding the ideal candidates for us. The size of the firm means that we probably offer, usually on average, I'd say two training contracts every year. So the focus is very much on quality rather than quantity. So we do like to use the vacation scheme and work experience platforms to be able to get to know candidates as well as we can, be sure that we're hiring the right people, and also of course for you to be sure that the firm's right for you. We do sort of we do contribute towards training costs. Appreciate it is a very expensive thing to go through. That there's no really cheap way of training in law. So the firm does contribute towards that on a sort of a rolling basis. So we sort of take a view on what the likely fees are going to be for individuals in a given year, and contribute towards that. In terms of the key dates for you to be aware of, our applications for vacation schemes and training contracts open in early January and close at the end of February. Do always recommend that people get in as early as they can rather than leaving it to the last minute, although we'd never sort of stop someone from applying if as long as they're in within the deadline. You can often tell the people who have left it to the last minute, the ones who have got another firm's name in their application or something like that, because it's a copy and paste job. So I'd always encourage you to sort of take as long as you can on that application, make a start on it early, really think it through, and show as much as you can why you actually do want to apply to our firm. We know there's a lot of competition out there. There's lots of firms looking for the best candidates, but we're always keen to see why people want to come and work for Hay and Kilner. I personally went through exactly that system. So I actually studied music at Newcastle University, applied for a vacation scheme in my final year, and did that during that summer. I was offered a training contract, started that 2 years later after doing my conversion in LPC, and now I'm 3 years qualified. So in terms of our approach to what degree discipline you come from, very open-minded. I'd say there's easily a 50-50 split between people who have studied law and those that haven't. I'm certainly biased, having not studied law, and think that at least as good, if not better. But yeah, it's certainly an open-minded approach in terms of what degree discipline you've come from. In terms of why I'd say why I promote the firm, why I think it's a good firm to apply for and be interested in. There's very much a keen focus on the provision of training that you get, and the firm is always very keen from day one that you are very closely linked to an individual partner. So even on your vacation scheme, you'll be assigned to a partner on each day, and then on your training contract for each seat, you work very closely with one or two partners. So it's certainly not a case that partners are there to win work and the minions carry it out. It's very much a sort of collegiate approach to a team effort. And so you get thrown in at the deep end quite early on, but in the best possible sense, in that you're given real work from right at the very start of your training contract. You get exposure to a full process, and to clients very early on. You're not kept away from clients. You're sort of encouraged to get stuck in as much as possible. I mean, just this last month, we had our new intake of trainees. And so when I was working within the corporate team, she was thrown straight into a major completion on a transaction in the first 2 weeks. And obviously it's a lot to take in, but it was absolutely fantastic. And she got stuck in, did a great job, and is already, you can see, a lot more confident now, having been thrown into it early days. So it's the level of training that we'd look to provide is sort of a key element of the offering, and the progression that's encouraged. It is a really positive one. It's not a competitive process, so it's not like after a certain number of years you're up against and competing with your colleagues to become an associate or become a partner. There's sort of a natural progression, and if you do well and if you succeed and you can justify your place in the firm, then you will naturally progress through the ranks. And a lot of our partners did train with the firm, so our managing partner trained at the firm, and I'd say possibly even at least 50% of the current partnership were all trained and moved up through the firm. And regular discussions I had with people from a very early stage. I've had discussions with people in my team about what the progression track looks like. You aren't pitted against other people. Not everything is about the financials and your billing. People take a wider view in terms of what you contribute to the firm, and always really encouraged to have people get stuck in with all kinds of different elements of the firm, whether that's our corporate social responsibility, whether it's assisting with things like recruitment and attending law fairs. There's a wide variety of things that people are encouraged to get involved with, and a whole sort of holistic views taken on your contribution the firm, which is a sort of nice, slightly less clinical corporate edge to it, which is certainly something that's always appealed to me. In terms of tips for applying, I think one thing that we're keen on, given our sort of position in the Northeast market, is seeing that people have a genuine interest in working in the Northeast. We obviously get hundreds and hundreds of applications every year, and what we like to see is that people show a real desire to be based in the Northeast, to want to work not just for the firm but in the area. So even if that is come to Newcastle University, have really liked it here, want to set down some roots here, that can be enough. But it's just trying to show that there's a reason why you want to be here. What we try and avoid, given that we're looking effectively to hire future partners, is not have people that come and do 2 years and then decide they want to go off to a firm in London, or they want to go elsewhere. We're looking for people to begin their career and try and stay as long as possible. So sort of showing that dedication and showing that you've made a real interest in our firm. Not, for example, saying that you're passionate about doing shipping law. It's not something that we do, but we do see that those sort of things creep into people's applications. Not thinking that you're applying to a magic circle firm, because we're not that, and we're sort of very comfortable with not being that. And I guess the other thing is, ultimately what we're doing is looking to hire the people that we want to work with. So I think the key thing we look for in a vacation scheme is how you fit into how you work with people, how you fit in with people in the firm. It's very easy to sort of focus on the law and the legal side of it and trying to show off what you can do, and obviously that's really important, but that can also be taught, and that's what the point of a sort of really good training is to learn that. What you can't necessarily teach is being able to be someone that people want to work with. And I think trying to get that sort of personality across it's difficult in an application, but in assessment days and on a vacation scheme is really important, particularly when we're looking for quality over quantity in terms of trainee numbers. So yeah, our applications open in early January, close at the end of February. There's lots of people at the firm that are always happy to chat and help with applications. So certainly in terms of getting in touch with myself, I'm more than happy to chat with anyone if you've got any particular questions about our application process. But hopefully that's a useful oversight of the firm and what we offer.
Thanks so much, Tom. That's brilliant insight into what you do here in Kilner, and really nice to hear the kind of trajectory and collaborative nature of what it is that you do there. And lovely to know you're also a non-linear student, as we'd say. So nice to hear that 50-50.
People are always fairly surprised by the music background.
Yeah, I know.
It's not a traditional route in.
It's not, and I think that figure is quite similar at Newcastle, of students who kind of switch back and forth, and I'm sure it'll echo across other employers that we hear from later today. It'll be a good one to pick up afterwards. Thank you so much, Tom. Isabel from Flex Legal, we're going to hear from you next, if you're happy to share your screen and let us know a little bit about what it is you do.
Definitely. I will just share it now. Can you all see that? Perfect. So I'm Isabel, and I'm a Client Services Associate at Flex Legal. So just kind of an outline of what this presentation is going to cover. I'm going to talk a bit about Flex Legal, and then I'm going to mainly focus on working through Flex, because that's probably what's most relevant to you. I'll then just briefly talk about our SQE journal, and I think there's time for questions at the end, so I'll leave that to later. So Flex Legal essentially connects paralegals and lawyers with busy legal teams. We are a tech company that create opportunities for young law or non-law graduates like yourselves, and so I'll briefly kind of go into what that means and the history of Flex. So Flex was founded by Mary and James Moore in 2016. Mary was essentially a trainee at a law firm in London. She looked out the window and saw a group of young law students thinking how much they needed legal work experience, and how much she, as a young lawyer, needed help in her busy legal team. And so she thought, and that's how the idea of Flex was born essentially, that she wanted to use tech to kind of connect the two, sorry. 5 years later, we have over 5,500 paralegals on our platform and 500 lawyers. We're also really proud of the diversity we have. So we have 150 languages spoken, 35% of our candidates studied abroad, and of our kind of group paralegals, there have been 300 training contracts awarded. So that just kind of highlights that it's a great kind of in-between stage. If you've just graduated from university and you're kind of looking for a training contract, but you're not maybe sure what kind of law you want to go into, or you haven't quite secured it yet. So here are just kind of some of the examples of our clients. So we've got kind of traditional law firms like Freshfields, Gunnar Cook, Brian Cave, Leighton Paisner, and then we've also got more in-house teams. So things like ASOS, Boohoo, and Monzo. And these are also some of the kind of awards that we've attended and been part of, to just kind of show that, you know, we're a really great platform that you hopefully want to join. So now I'm just going to briefly go over working through Flex. So these are some of the kind of general tasks that our paralegals will do while on placement. So as you can see, kind of it varies massively from general admin to kind of knowing your client, legal research, mediation, everything like that. So yeah, there's a massive range of things that you can get involved in whilst working through Flex Legal. These are just kind of highlighting the differences, because obviously you will probably get offers to work with either an in-house team or a law firm. So if you're working in a law firm, you'll kind of be exposed to a larger team, you'll specialize in a particular area, and you'll also be working for multiple clients. Whereas if you're working in-house, it's likely, but obviously this is just kind of a big generalization. It's likely you'll be part of a smaller team, you'll kind of be able to broaden your more general skills, and you'll only have one client, and that's obviously your employer. So this is a video that we usually share, but because, you know, I only have 5 minutes to speak, I probably won't show it to you, but if you do want to see it, just email after and I can send the link over to you. So some of the benefits of working through Flex are that you get to kind of try and learn new areas of law, because, you know, some of our placements are, for example, a week long, and so you could have, let's say, 3 week-long placements, and that means you get a really kind of broad variety of legal exposure. It also allows you to raise your profile within the legal industry, so you obviously make a lot of kind of connections and networking opportunities whilst on placement. You're also able to accept or reject any of the opportunities we send you, which I'll kind of talk about a bit more later, which means you're able to work around your availability, so you have absolutely no obligation to accept any of the roles we send you, and we'll continue to send you roles even if you do reject them. So it's a really flexible kind of working way, and then you will, if you sign up to Flex, you'll also receive our monthly newsletter, which has loads of useful content and events, and also there may be the possibility of permanent employment opportunities. Obviously we can't guarantee that, but we have seen clients take on paralegals on a more permanent basis after their placement with us. So how you essentially work with Flex is you apply through the link there, flex.legal/apply, and it's just a really brief kind of application form where you say your availability, so, you know, full-time or part-time, and you just send us your CV. We do have a few kind of requirements. If we accept CVs from people in their final year of a law degree or during the GDL of their non-law degree, and that's just because of, you know, you're working as a paralegal, you do need to have some legal knowledge. But if you don't have a 2-1 and you've got a 2-2, for example, if you've got loads of paralegal experience, that's absolutely fine. We will still consider you. You then have an onboarding meeting, which is just a really brief kind of meeting with someone like myself. Well, we'll just talk about Flex and kind of get to know each other, and we then ask you to create a profile video, which is one of the unique kind of selling points of Flex. We send all our employers profile videos that the candidates create, and that allows clients to get to know the candidate's personality and things like that. And then essentially, once you're on our platform, we start to send you roles that we think you'd be suitable for, and you're free to either accept or reject them as you please. I'll just briefly mention our SQE journal. So it's basically I'm not sure if it will be that relevant to any of you, because obviously you still have the opportunity to go through the kind of more traditional training contract route. But if you are considering the SQE, definitely have a look at our Flex journal. It's free to use 2021. You don't have to actually be a paralegal on the Flex platform. So, you know, if you're doing a placement year or something during your degree, it's really great to kind of start tracking your progress towards your SQE, because your placement year can count towards your SQE. And you also are able to track kind of your experience against the SRA competencies, which is really valuable when you're kind of completing the work over 2 years, for example. And yeah, that's everything.
Thanks so much, Isabel. It's really interesting and a very different perspective again on kind of approaches and avenues to getting work experience and into the sector, and a really flexible one, which is not always possible with this area. So thank you so much. We're going to move on now to Tara from DRS to hear a little bit about what it is you do over there.
Thanks, Rona. So hi, everyone. My name is Tara, and I'm an executive consultant at DRS. I graduated Newcastle Law School in 2019, and I've been with DRS ever since. We were established in 2009, so we've been up and running for a few years now, and we have roughly 100 members of staff, maybe slightly more. We're a consultancy firm based both in Newcastle and London, and we support some of the world's leading organisations in investment banking, asset management, and alternative investment management. What does that mean in practice? Well, my day-to-day work consists of negotiating a variety of different contracts on behalf of a top-tier investment bank, assisting with templates, other guidance materials, and keeping up to date with any regulatory changes that might affect our client. I primarily work on derivatives, repurchase and stock loan agreements, which, unless you've watched The Big Short, which is on Netflix and I would recommend, you might not be too familiar with, but that's okay. Most of us do join the team with little to no prior experience. All that matters is that we want to learn. DRS has a brilliant platform with various training resources. We have weekly breakfast club calls every Friday morning where we discuss current events, any queries, any developments, and each employee is allocated a buddy and a coach. So these are people that would be responsible for your progression within the company and are there to support you as part of your day-to-day. As for my personal experience so far, I've really enjoyed working at a consultancy firm because I think it's the best of both worlds. You get to experience working as part of an in-house legal team of your client, but in a much more relaxed environment. When I was quite keen to dip my toes into the world of work when I graduated, but I wasn't too sure that this type of work could be for me. And I know a lot of colleagues do go through that, but I think choosing DRS and giving it a chance completely unveiled a new type of work, an area of law that I probably would have closed myself off to. It's challenged me in so many different ways. I've grown, I've matured as a person, and I've honed my negotiation skills amongst others. You get given a full portfolio of work after you complete your first initial stages of training, which allows you to gain, I think, invaluable experience right from the beginning, with support and shadowing, of course, from more experienced team members. Each member of our ever-growing team, I think we've hired about 50 people so far this year, brings something to the company and lives by its values, and that's why I think it's such a great place to work. It also encourages its employees to branch out and pursue hobbies and any other interests, which I think is one of our top perks. So every year, each employee is given the opportunity to expense non-work related training, such as cookery classes, language courses, and we're also given additional paid leave for volunteering. So we have a dedicated culture club, which is responsible for sort of representing the employees and suggesting changes to our policy, for instance, to directors, to HR, maybe team events, and what charities we'd like to support throughout the year. In terms of job opportunities, we offer places for solicitor apprentices, placement year students, fixed and full-time positions. We also have quite an extensive policy, both in relation to training contracts and staff which we would like to sit the SQE. And we do contribute towards the costs and provide study leave, etc. So if you think you can play the right part, do the right thing, and choose growth, then I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have on recruitment process, offer any advice of what it's like working at a consultancy firm or in banking and finance law more generally. Thank you.
Thanks, Tara. It's really nice to hear you experience such a nurturing environment, and another Newcastle grad, you know, it does help kind of show that trajectory and staying in the Northeast and the different experiences you can get here. Thank you so much. So we're going to go on to Daniel from Sintons, last but very not least. Tell me a bit about you.
Just share my screen. I'm just trying to share my screen, but it's not working, so I'll just...
Don't worry, I can do that for you if you want, Daniel, if you still want to use your screen. Bear with me one moment. There we go, we got there eventually.
Thanks very much.
No problem. Ooh. Oh, apologies, I can't get it off this.
It's okay if you just go to slideshow in the top.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's from there. Okay, we'll just do it from there. That's fine.
Sorry.
No. Right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Daniel Earl. So I'm a trainee solicitor at Sintons. A little bit about me. I'm actually from Hartlepool, which is not too far away from Newcastle. I studied my law degree at the University of Manchester in 2018. Whilst I was there, I think I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to come back to the Northeast to hopefully get a training contract and have a career in law. So I applied for the graduate assessment week at Sintons in the summer of 2018, got onto that, had a really successful week and was fortunately offered a training contract to join Sintons a couple of years after. At the time, I didn't actually have that much legal work experience, probably not compared to the other people who were also on the graduate assessment week. And I think because of that, the firm decided it would be a good idea for me to join early before my training contract as a paralegal. So I joined in June 2019 as a paralegal in the dispute resolution team. And I worked there for around about 8 or 9 months up until the start of the pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic. And that was a pretty invaluable experience for me. Firstly, to have probably my first ever full-time job, and also to get some real legal work experience prior to starting my training contract with the firm. So I had those 8 to 9 months as a paralegal. I then had a period of time out before I started my training contract in March this year. And I had my first seat in the corporate and commercial team, and I've just recently started my second seat in our neurotrauma team. Absolutely loved my time in corporate and commercial, and I'm really enjoying my time in neurotrauma at the moment. Just to some of you who are watching, those two areas of law are completely different, and that is probably one of the best things about Sintons for me, is that we are a full service law firm. And what that means is that we are able to advise in areas of business, corporate and commercial law, but also we offer services in a more personal nature, things like family law, wills and probate, things like personal injury, where you're more dealing with a person one-on-one as opposed to a big business. So yeah, in terms of my time so far as a trainee, I would say I've been given a lot of client contact from an early stage. It has been probably a different start for me compared to what it will be for you when you do start your training contract, given that I started it sort of in the middle of some lockdowns because of the coronavirus pandemic, which meant that most of the client contact was virtually, either over Zoom or Teams. But over the past couple of months, those sort of Teams and Zoom meetings have turned more into a face-to-face contact with the client, or even internal meetings with other colleagues. But as a trainee here, you do get a lot of work from partners, which is really appreciated. I think it's important to see what they are doing and to see how they work, because ultimately I think a lot of us do have aspirations to get to that stage, or at least progress through the sort of legal ladder, to see how high we can get. So as I've already touched on, we offer a broad range of practice areas. If you are somebody, and I imagine this is probably the case, that you're not actually sure what area of law you're interested in completely yet, I think it's really good to join a firm who offer a broad range of practice areas, and you're able to effectively dabble in a few different areas and see what you're good at, see what you're interested in, and ultimately see what you'd like to qualify in for your future career as a lawyer. Another positive aspect for me has been my support bubble here, both from a departmental level, a firm level, but also from my other trainees and solicitor apprentices that we have here. I think that friendship and that bond is really important when you're going through a training contract, because you are going to have moments that are difficult, and other people are going to have moments that are difficult, and you want to be able to bounce off each other and give each other support that the other person needs at that time, because ultimately, as many times as you'll have a difficult moment, you'll have an amazing moment as well. So I think that's been a really good positive aspect of being a trainee at Sintons. And then just a couple of other added bonuses of working here. You get something called qualification leave, which is basically just an extended period of time off work after you qualify as a solicitor here, which is obviously really nice, and a lot of people do take that up. And then lastly, you do actually get your birthday off here. Fortunately for me, I've had both my birthdays off whilst being here, one of them being a Friday, which was obviously very, very nice. You could just switch on to the next one, please. Just a little bit more about us. Obviously, I've said we are based in Newcastle, but we do have what we call satellite offices in York and London. They are not sort of, not even remotely primary offices for us. They're more so for a place that we can meet our clients, either in York or London, who are based closer to those areas, and it's either not sort of accessible for them to come up to Newcastle, or perhaps it's a really good place for us to try and win work if we have a potential client down there that we'd like to work with. It's a lot easier to sort of meet in the middle rather than asking them to come all the way up to Newcastle. So another thing, we've recently celebrated our 125th birthday. We are in fact very, very old. And we're looking forward to the next 125 years again. Another thing which I think Tom at Kilner sort of touched on is that they are a firm committed to the Northeast, and I would say that is also the case with Sintons. We don't pretend to be an international firm or even really a national firm, although we do have clients both internationally and nationally. We definitely have a commitment to the Northeast, to this region. And I think it's important, if you are applying for a training contract here, that you really make that clear that you are committed to the Northeast, because we really do put a lot of importance on that during when we're reviewing applications. And just a last point, we do put a lot of time, especially as a trainee, into raising funds for charity and corporate social responsibility matters. And as a result of that, we do offer a number of days to all members of staff to be able to take time off to take part in charitable matters. And then finally, as you'll all be interested in, the graduate recruitment process at Sintons. So that is something which I went through and thought it was a really good process. I got to spend a whole week effectively working here in a couple of different departments and meeting a lot of different people. And I think that's important, both in order for them to get to know you, but in order for you to really know whether this is something that you want to do in the long term. So at the moment, there's 7 current trainees. We have 3 more trainees to join us in September next year, and then another 3 September 2023. The window for applications to start a training contract in September 2024 opens in January next year, and I believe the deadline is towards the end of April next year. If you're going to apply, try and get your applications in as early as possible. But obviously, if you apply towards the end, we'll still review that application, and if you're the right fit for us, then we'll definitely offer you a place on our graduate assessment week. Just a few top tips. You've probably heard this before, but proofread your application. Ask somebody else to proofread it. There's nothing more frustrating than seeing a good application, but there's a few sort of basic grammar, spelling errors in there, and it just takes away the professionalism that you're trying to portray in your application. Again, as I've touched on, making it clear that you are committed to the Northeast and it is somewhere that you want to be in the long term is really, really important for us. We don't particularly want somebody to just see us as a stopgap before they move on to, you know, another firm, maybe in London or elsewhere. We would be investing in you in terms of your LPC fees, but also in terms of your training here. And the last thing we would want is for you to just go somewhere else after you qualify. But if you've got any more questions about our process, I'm more than happy to answer them either here, or if you want to drop me an email or find me on LinkedIn, that'd be absolutely fine. Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Daniel. And again, really nice to hear the kind of variety of things that you can get involved with, and that it's really spoken to me across everyone's presentations there, the kind of the support network that you have when you come to all your different companies. You know, they're all very different and they all explore different avenues, and you're in different locations and different kind of routes into these areas, but the support network is great, and it's a really encouraging thing, particularly from our perspective, to know that you've got that. They want, you know, you want this to be the career for you, and you want to match the company, and it works both ways. So that's really great to hear, and this is the perfect opportunity for our students to do that. I'm just going to grab the chat up just to see. I haven't had any questions just yet, so I do encourage you at the moment, anyone that's listening, just to drop some conversation in. If you've got any particular questions, that's fine. I will very quickly direct the law ones to our panelists. They're the experts. This is your chance to really quiz them, or just general questions about what it's like getting into this area. It's been echoed across the session that it's not linear. It's not something that we do have students that come from law into law, and you know, likewise there are students that come from other areas, music or whichever, into this area. So it's a really important point to stress in terms of getting into law and just working out if it's for you and if that is the company for you as well. So in the meantime, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, unless there's something else our panelists want to kind of bring up just at the moment. I did really like hearing about the kind of top tips, and it is something we'll come back to. But it was really interesting to hear about the kind of what our students can do to kind of bolster their applications. So, for example, I think the Northeast companies have mentioned, you know, this, you really stress that Northeast, the motivations behind that and wanting to commit to that area. But it would be great to hear if there's any kind of key things that would really help boost those applications, any experience that's worth mentioning, or skills that can that they might not think of that would be really beneficial when you're applying into the various roles that you guys are recruiting for. Someone want to kick us off, or shall I pick on you?
I don't mind kicking off.
Thanks, Tara, go for it.
One thing that just popped in my mind actually when you were saying that was, I was speaking to a couple of people recently that joined the team, recognized me, but I did not recognize them, and they had mentioned how they remembered anytime I spoke while I was at uni, or a careers fair, or I think we'd run sort of dummy negotiation things before, and little things like this. There are plenty of firms that do put things on, and asking a question or even just making a note that you've attended these goes a long way, because it goes to show that you actually have taken an interest. If there has been a demo or a talk or a fair or anything, you've gone out there, you've asked for people's details, you've messaged me on LinkedIn or anything like that, it does go a long way when you have those initial conversations with sort of the HR team or the manager, because, for example, we can't tell you a lot before you start for confidentiality reasons, but you know, basic overviews of the company and things like that really does go a long way, or mentioning that you've spoken to someone who is a part of the team and gotten a general insight from them. It's really not to be undervalued.
That's great. Yeah, that proactive nature, and just saying like that you're interested in that company in particular, and that you've made the steps to kind of network and join you for events. And I guess employer research is a great part of that, right?
Absolutely.
Daniel, do you want to tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that? If there's anything that you particularly look for in kind of applications or engagement with students and applicants?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just people putting down their skills and achievements, I think I definitely struggled with bragging about myself when I was a student, and I think it's really important for people to do that, even if it's an achievement that you think has absolutely nothing to do with law. Put it down. express why you think that's a really, really good thing and it is an achievement, because those are the sort of things that do stand you out from other people. But at the same time, don't make things up, don't lie. If you don't have those achievements, or you don't have those skills, then there's no need to really lie about it, because ultimately you might end up joining a firm on the back of something you've wrote in an application which isn't true, and then you get there and think, this isn't really for me, and they think, you aren't really right for this firm, and that's the last thing that you want. Really, you want to join somewhere that's the right fit. Something which I really tried to do in my applications was to answer the question set. If don't go off on a tangent about something which they're not asking about. Try and really stick to what they're asking, and at least I always tried in my answers to link things back to examples. So if it was a question about do you have sort of leadership skills, give examples of when you've been a leader, but also link that to what you think it would be like as a solicitor, because ultimately that's what they're trying to see. They're trying to see, well, if you have that skill, how is that going to apply in practice when you join as a trainee and then form a career as a solicitor. So I think those are really important points. Other than that, I think it's really just a matter of having a strong application, a good application, enough for you to get onto, whether it's an assessment week or a vacation scheme. And then really, once you're on that vacation scheme, that's what I think is the real chance for you to express who you are, because it's very difficult to get to know somebody just over what they write down. Really, you've got to see them in person. In terms of a few tips, if you do get onto the assessment week at Sintons, I always tried to be confident, but not overconfident. Try not to overpower people. I don't really think that's what we're looking for here at Sintons. I don't think we're looking for somebody to effectively not be a team player, because as a solicitor, it's really, really important that you are a team player. So be confident, but participate and help others, but try not to be too overconfident and borderline sort of arrogant. So I wouldn't do that. And then really take an interest in other people, and I mean the partners, the lawyers, but also IT staff, admin, everybody, because those conversations are then passed on to other people after you've had that vacation scheme, and those might be the conversations that end up meaning you get a training contract. So, and people love to talk about themselves, quite frankly. I mean, if you just ask them to tell them about themselves, I'm sure they'll tell you everything, because people like to talk about themselves. So they're just a few tips from me.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so insightful, and lots of nods around the room as well. I imagine everybody is in their own setting experienced all those things. It's really interesting what you say about it. It is hard to get yourself across in an application when you're still at the written stage, but placing your answers in the what I will do context is a really important one. It's certainly one I've used in applications, not in a law setting, but it's really beneficial, and it shows that you're already thinking that of yourself in that role. And I think that speaks a lot about kind of who you are, and you're already thinking about, well, you want to be there. It comes across very well. So thanks so much. Isabel, obviously you've got a slightly different perspective. It would be great to hear your thoughts on that.
Ours isn't as much like a written application as it is for kind of training contracts, and it's generally just your CV. But what I would say, kind of reviewing applications, a lot of people really don't demonstrate that they're actually interested in law, and there's so many ways that you can actually show that. For example, you might do pro bono at university, or even kind of unpaid work experience. Everything like that just really demonstrates that you are interested in law. Because if I'm going through, for example, a non-law graduate's application and they've only done work experience in something completely separated from law, I'm kind of in my head thinking, why are you applying? I want to know that you're kind of going to be committed. We're going to be sending you the roles and you're actually going to be interested in them and want to get involved with Flex. So that's one of the things I would say. And another thing would probably be like this is an obvious one, but basically every application you do, just proofread it. It's so important. There are so many mistakes. Some candidates send us CVs where it's kind of got the track changes on them and they haven't changed that and taken that out. And so, you know, we are probably more forgiving than, let's say, if you were applying to a Magic Circle law firm. But yeah, it's just not the best first impression. So yeah, that's what I would probably say.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm sure we've all been there with the proofreading experience on the wrong end of that. But it, you know, it's not too obvious to say. It's something that obviously happens, and it's just a really small thing to double check. Or like somebody mentioned, even just get someone else to read over it. Does it say what you think it's saying? You know, you can get very deep into an application and kind of lose sight of what it actually reads like. So, you know, just get someone, even who doesn't know anything about law, just to read over it, and is it selling you? Is it selling you in terms of the company and in terms of the applications that they're bringing forward to someone like yourself as well? Thank you so much. Tom, would you like to tell us a wee bit about your property?
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd sort of add to that is you do sometimes see applications from people who maybe their academics, say their first or second year of uni, or even at GCSE or A levels, there might be blips there, things that aren't as strong. And what people miss the opportunity to do in those circumstances is actually explain why that is, because although some firms will just take an approach that if you haven't got a first, or if you haven't got a 2-1 from a certain university, you're immediately sifted out. I think it's perfectly, often in some cases you're missing an opportunity to sell yourself even more, because if you've, say in your first year of university, had some kind of personal circumstances that meant you have struggled academically, and you've actually got a chance there to say, well, this is what I've done to overcome them, and you can see that my grades have improved in my second year or into my third year. And actually people often forget to try and justify that, because naturally it is a sort of work area that people do want strong academics. Employers are looking for that, but that's not to say that there isn't a perfectly justifiable reason why you might have got some less glamorous results in there as well. So don't miss an opportunity to actually turn that into a positive, and say, either be able to explain what the mitigating circumstances might be, or put a completely positive spin on it and say, well, this is actually, you know, what I was experiencing, and I've managed to come through this, and this is how I've dealt with it, because that in itself can be very impressive. And sometimes people have fantastic applications aside from that, of you know, been trying for years and done all kinds of experience, really pushing themselves, and just fall short on some of those things. So it's not missing that opportunity. And then I guess I'd just echo what Daniel said in terms of, once you get in front of people at a firm, it is having that human interaction with people, with everyone, not just thinking that the managing partner is the person to impress, because they're probably not even making the decision at the end of the day anyway. It's everyone. It is the people on reception when you turn up for an assessment day. If you're nice to them and you're polite, then that can filter through and people will hear that. And if ultimately what people are looking for is someone that they want to work with and can work as a part of a team with, then that kind of thing is really important, and equally just as important as your academics or your work experience, I think.
Thanks so much, Tom. And it's really nice to hear that that's the approach to applications, and you know, you want the person, I think you said it there, you know, you're going to be working with people. It's such a collaborative environment that you've got to know that you remember those interactions, and you've got to know that that person will be a good fit and you'll be a good fit for them. It's something that's been a bit of a theme throughout, but you know, from each of your perspectives, that's been really important to make sure that for a long and happy career for both of you. I do have a couple of questions, so I'm conscious of time. I'll shimmy on and ask them nice specific ones, which I won't even hazard a guess at. So feel free, panelists, to shout up if this is something you can answer. But for those converting to law, is there a particular postgrad course that would be preferred? They do understand that the Magic Circle firms want non-law students to do the PDGL and an SQE course at a BPP university, but they're wondering if there's any preference over PGDL or a law master's. I wonder if anyone would be able to kind of help answer that one?
I can give it a go. So I actually did the PGDL myself, but what I would say, I mean, they're basically the same course, the PGDL and the kind of GDL masters. It's just with the masters, you get the funding from the government, because obviously it's a master level qualification, and you also do a kind of extended project at the end. I wouldn't say that employers generally kind of have a preference over whether you've done the masters or the GDL. You know, they're interested that you've covered the kind of core content to the best of your ability in that quite short space of time. So yeah, I think it's kind of more of a practical choice for you, maybe, rather than a kind of in terms of employability choice. I don't know if anyone else would disagree or confirm that.
I'd probably agree with that. I don't think at the end of the day it matters all that much. And to be quite frank, once by sort of day one of your training, a lot of that will, I mean, a lot of what you get taught is obviously invaluable, but you're not using it day to day in a particularly practical sense. So I think as long as you're sort of meeting the requirements to be able to start your training contract, then I don't think, certainly not our firm wouldn't be making any decisions based solely on that.
Thanks, that's great. It was a good question, and really good to know that it comes down to choice and circumstance, and not something you need to kind of, that will be dictated. Okay, just one more question from our chat. What do the trainees think the advantages are of going to a smaller firm rather than a bigger national, international or magic circle firm? Another good question. Has anyone got any thoughts? What would you
I think in terms of, I suppose it's echoing what I said earlier, really, and I would certainly not being disparaging of bigger firms, because obviously they're very big and very successful for a reason, and I wouldn't suggest for a moment that you end up being any better at a smaller firm, but I think the exposure, just anecdotally in terms of people I know that work at much bigger firms, the exposure you get to client work immediately from day one, the trust that is put in you, means that you're effectively practicing as a solicitor straight away, and you're expected to be able to do that side of the job, rather than being a sort of a small cog in a very, very big machine. You are an immediately important part of the team, and people rely on you, and you're needed, and they invest the time in you accordingly. So you do get an awful lot of partner investment in your training. Part of that's just selfish, because the more they invest in you from an early stage, the more they get out of you. But I think that kind of the exposure to really good work. I mean, from day one of my first seat in employment, I was involved in an employment tribunal case, saw it right the way through in my training, and we got and ultimately sort of towards the end was leading on it with the partner in the background, and that was an amazing experience, and sort of cemented that's what the area of law I wanted to work in. And I'm sure there are bigger firms that offer similar kinds of exposure, but I think that's, in my experience and anecdotally, certainly one of the benefits. Work-life balance can also be another one. It's very rare that we'll be at work at 10 o'clock at night very regularly. So I think that is one of the benefits really that people look for in working in regions rather than in London, in that you are more likely to have a bit more of a work-life balance, and I think actually our firm, and I suspect Daniel would probably say the same, actually actively encourage that, and I think they would see it as a failing on their part if you were having to work too late very regularly. They don't see you as something as an asset to sort of to try and squeeze as much out of. It's actually they would be concerned if you were having to work that much, and it would be actively discouraged, if anything.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and a lot of nods again around. I think everyone would be in agreement about that, and particularly nice to hear about that work-life balance. It's certainly a bit of a myth, or it was meant a few years ago, that your working days, if you're in this area, are going to be kind of catastrophic, and you don't get much choice over that. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and particularly not in those smaller firms that actively encourage and look after you. You're not gonna work well, you're not gonna cope, and your mindset and mental well-being will not be good if you're being stretched, but it's great to hear that they look after you in that respect. Okay, I'm gonna just very quickly ask every one of you, you've all been brilliant at giving us your top tips, but if you can focus in on one and try and make them different, if I can ask each of you just to give me your very top tip on applying for the company or the organisation that you're representing today. I'll just start with Isabel, you're top of my screen. If you want to give us what your kind of top tip for applying to Flex would be.
I think really, yeah, what I said before, just show your interest in the law and kind of working in the legal industry, I'd say.
Thanks, Isabel. Tara, what would you suggest?
So from my personal experience, when I was driving to my interview, I just thought, you know what, I'm wasting everyone's time. This isn't going to be for me. I don't think this is going to be a good fit. And my mum told me, just do the interview. I had a sort of 4-week internship. Try that. Try it. It will work for you. They'll see if they like you as a candidate. And I'm so glad I did. So my top tip might be have a look at what's out there, whether it's different, like sort of in-house law firms, consultancies, whatever it is. Look at different areas of law. Do try things out. Because there are, for example, this niche area of law that we would work in, so few people have any prior experience, any prior knowledge in. So do put yourself out there. Do sort of jump in the deep end, even if it's for a week placement or anything like that. Try before you buy. Works both ways for students and also for employers. So I definitely recommend that.
Thank you so much. Daniel, what would yours be?
Sorry, I think in terms of the application form, it would be sort of what I mentioned earlier, in that try and link your answers to what you think it would be like as a solicitor. I mean, that I think is a really important tip for applications across most firms, but I think it's particularly important here at Sintons, and it is valued quite a lot. So I would try and focus in on that. And if anybody's got any more questions about that specifically, and they want to sort of get in touch with me, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you. And then sort of in terms of the actual assessment week here, again, of what I've touched on earlier, just try and have a positive manner. Having a positive manner goes a very, very long way. And just have that positive manner with everybody, and ask lots of questions, and really like that. I think that is one of the biggest things you can do. So those would be my main tips.
Thank you, Daniel. That's great. And finally, Tom.
I think I'd just say show your proper commitment both to law, to the region that you want to work in, and to the firm that you're applying to. So make your application bespoke to that firm. Show who the people that you've spoken to at that firm, the areas of work that you know that they do and are proud of, and not just have a sort of a one-stop shop approach to applying and copy and pasting. Show a real commitment to that place and those people, because you can tell that in applications.
Thanks, Tom, and thanks everyone else. I want to thank you all so much. It's been really, really insightful and really beneficial. There's been so many kind of great insights, but also really tangible things that the students can take away from this about the sector, about just getting to know you and getting to know the area, the breadth of things you can get involved with, but also really practical advice on kind of your application dates, on getting a little bit of idea of kind of how you begin to network and engage and what those might look like, and then how to sell those when you come to application. I also want to thank the students as well. Thank you so much for your questions. Really, really helpful and insightful, and got some great answers. We are just coming towards the end of the session, so we're going to stop the recording just now. I'm going to let my colleague just stop that for just now.